right, so welcome. Today we're going to talk about chocolate mousse. And not just any chocolate mousse, but a classic Italian chocolate mousse that I learned when I was a kid in culinary school. So we're going to start first with about 6 ounces of chocolate. Now this is a Calabo semi-sweet, bittersweet. It's right there in between the two. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it on the stove. And you can tell it's already starting to melt here, which is good. We're going to put this on the stove top with a double boiler, and we're just going to get this to melt while we're doing our other mise en place. Now, next one, we've got a clean, cold bowl here with egg whites, and this is 3 egg whites. We're going to put that into the bowl. So we're going to start first with just whipping these egg whites, and you'll notice that my arm is tight to my body. Most of the work is right here in the wrist, so I can actually hold my wrist here and it goes back and forth. You'll see that my body's not moving a lot. Most of my effort goes straight to the wrist, and then I can spin the bowl. And what we're looking for here is a foam before we add any sugar. Now we've got our sugar already scaled off here. We want to make sure that we get a nice foam that actually starts to kind of peak just a touch. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. If your arm gets tired, don't slow down, switch. Now you can see that foam has really started to develop there. It's got a nice, I can see the big bubble sitting on top, and it actually holds. So now our next step is our sugar. Now, Escoffier uses the phrase to rein in our sugar, which means if I go from up here, okay, and let it just kind of rain in. All right, this is important because you don't want to just pour it in and sink to the bottom. You want it to grab across the air bubbles that you're making while you're whipping this. And you'll see, because of the control of the arm here, the bowl's not going all over the place. Get that last little bit in, and then I can switch arms. All right, so now the foam's starting to get a little bit thicker. And we have to get this to where it's about a medium peak to a stiff, but not dry. If it's dry, what will actually happen is the water that's in the egg whites will actually separate and fall to the bottom. So, now you can see shaving cream. And it holds that tip right there. When you see that, you know you're pretty much there. I could probably go another 10, 15 seconds. Switch arms. And then the true test. Okay? And I tell all my students this. The true test. Can you hold it over your head? Holds nice, good shaving cream consistency. All right. So that will get reserved and put to the side. Now we'll start with our cream. But before we start our cream, we want to check our chocolate here. Looks like we're good. And I'm going to turn my burner off. And there we go. All right. While that's cooling off a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and start on our cream. Now, the reason why I did the egg whites first and then the cream second, I'm only going to dirty 1 whisk. This is important. You don't want to spend all your time washing dishes. You want to spend your time making food, okay? So be smart. Think really, really smart. Work smart, not hard, okay? So now I've got my cream. Well, if the cream was on this whisk, I wouldn't be able to whisk the egg whites because oil and other ingredients will keep that from actually being able to whip and hold. So now I'm going to put my cream in. And I'm going to do pretty much the same thing I did with our whipped egg whites. But in this case, no sugar goes in. Once again, if the bowl gets a little high up, you can actually lower it by stepping back from the table and extending your arm, allowing your wrist to do the work very quickly and efficiently. All right, so you'll see by stepping back, that really allowed me to do that pretty quickly. And sometimes that's all it is. So now I'm going to go about 10 more seconds. If I go too far with this, I'm going to make butter, especially when it comes to the point where I'm actually folding it into the chocolate, the butter, and the egg yolk, which is the next step we're going to move to here. So you want to get it just to the edge, but don't take it all the way. You need to bring it back just a touch so that you don't break the cream and make butter. So our next step here, we're going to take a dry towel. And we're going to bring our chocolate. I want to make sure that the bottom of the bowl is dry. And I'm going to take my butter. And this is a sweetened, unsalted butter. This sweetened, unsalted butter, with the bowl being still really warm, I can melt that butter into the bottom of the bowl, and you'll see that the chocolate will get really, really shiny. So what this is doing is actually cooling the chocolate down. And making an emulsion with the chocolate and the butter. The butter stands, just like the chocolate, as a setting agent. The setting agent itself being fat. So fat at a cold state is usually very firm. Same thing with chocolate. Chocolate in a cold state is usually very firm. So by incorporating our butter into the chocolate, we're putting a little bit more fat in, and that fat will serve as basically a setting agent for our foam. So I got a little extra chocolate over here that I'm melting for a little garnish that I can show you guys. So now my chocolate is melted. I want to make sure that all the butter is gone. Good. And now I'm going to add some richness to this with my coddled egg yolks. Now the coddled egg yolks have just been warmed up a bit. Those egg yolks are now in there. And we will, at this point, the process goes very quickly. You need to move once these cold / cooked or coddled egg yolks are done, then you really need to get that moving. And this mixture is starting to cool. You want to make sure that the chocolate and everything has a nice clean emulsion, and it's warm but not hot, warm but not cold. If it's cold, you end up with chips. If it's too hot, you end up basically melting all your foam. So you can actually grab the bottom of the bowl, and it should feel neutral to the touch, meaning it's not super, super hot. It feels like your body temp, which is good. That's what we want. So now I can leave the whisk in for the first. So we do a thing what's called sacrifice to the gods, the first one. Okay. So we have our whipped cream. We're going to take 1/3 of our whipped cream, just 1/3. And we're going to put this in. Now remember, this cream is cold. Now we talked about folding, but in this case, what I want you to do is whip that first third into your mousse. Aggressive. Get in there and get it broken down. And you'll notice that we have a lighter texture and it's starting to hold and stand up. We're then going to take 1/3 of our egg whites. A little less aggressive, but you'll see I'm still using the whisk. Bounce it through. You'll notice that this gets really light very quickly. And it starts to stand up. And at this point, I'm going to remove our whisk altogether. We don't need that whisk in there. From here on out, we'll be using a rubber spatula to actually do all of our incorporations. So 1 more third of our cream. And then this time, we're now going to take the towel out from underneath. Clean up as we go. And we're going to do a folding motion where we turn the bowl and the spatula at the same time. But you'll notice this maneuver of folding the spatula over and just letting it ride. This ensures that you're getting all of the product from the bottom and dispersing it throughout the middle. Just like so. We're going to take another third of our egg whites. Same thing. We're going to turn and fold. Turn and fold. This is probably one of my favorite recipes to make at home. It was one of the first recipes that I made when I came out of culinary school and I had my first pastry chef position. And so I can use milk chocolate and I can use dark chocolate in this recipe. If I wanted coffee, I could put some coffee extract in there. So there's a lot of versatility here. So understanding one really good recipe and having that ability to do a couple other things. Now you'll see now I can slow down a little bit. I've already got all this stuff incorporated. I don't have to rush. But that first third, when you put it in, you want to make sure that it gets in there, and that brings our chocolate down in temp. And then we end up with no chips. Now on the back end, we want to make sure that we get it folded enough so that we don't have streaks. However, you don't want to fold it so much that you lose all the air that you worked so hard on in the beginning to get. All right, so our last third of our egg whites. And once that gets incorporated, we'll pop this in the fridge just for 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to show you a little garnish. You've already got chocolate that you were melting. And since you already had chocolate that you were melting, I'm going to show you a quick little garnish here on the table, just using some basic ingredients. And our mousse is done at that point. You'll notice it's got that nice little jiggle, but it holds the lines. That's what we're looking for. All these fold lines are still holding. So I'm going to leave this together. I'm going to put it in the fridge here just for a moment, and we'll go ahead and do some chocolate garnish. So while that's in the fridge, we're going to take some of our warm chocolate. Now this has been melted. It's roughly around 113 degrees. You can always stick a thermometer in it to check and see. And the next step is nice cold table. This is marble, or it could be melamine or any of those surfaces. You don't want to do it directly on metal, but usually a surface like a granite or a marble works really, really well. We're going to take our chocolate here and we're just going to put it straight onto the table surface. Okay, and after that's on the surface, we're going to take an offset spatula and we're just going to spread this back and forth. I'm going to scrape up, spread back and forth. And what this is doing is it's activating beta crystalline structure. It's also cooling it down very quickly. And you'll see it gets what I call the sludge. It starts to get a little thick. Once that gets thick, and the color starts to change, you know you're getting close to where you need to be. And you'll notice that took seconds. All right, didn't take very long at all. I got my color, scrape one more time, and then spread it out nice and thin. You want to go as thin as possible. And then we're just going to wait for it to set just for a second. Right. You just keep pulling on it until we set. Right there. And we're set. So as this sets up and cools, we should be able to scrape up some shavings. We can also do some larger shavings like so. But you can also do chocolate cigarettes. Now, to do the chocolate cigarettes, we actually go down at about a 25 to 30 degree angle and we push. Now right now it's still setting up, but you'll see where it's getting ready to start there for us. I'm going to clean this edge off so it's nice and clean. So we end up with some nice pieces. But regardless of what you end up with, you have some sort of garnish or shaving that you can practice. So now we can Clean off the edge of the blade. We should be nice and cool now. Let's see if we can get a roll out of our piece here. There we go. It kind of rolls up a little bit. Let's try this way. There we go. There's a nice little chocolate cigarette roll for us. And it's about, you'll notice that I'm not going straight. It's at an angle. All right, so we have our chocolate mousse fresh out of the fridge. Nice consistency. Now, options. Let's first talk about just the typical martini glass option. You can actually take this. Look at that nice light texture. That's beautiful right there with some fresh berries. And then, of course, you can put some chocolate decor on it. We have one of our chocolate cigarettes here, right across the top. And maybe another little shaving there. Just gives you a nice little bit of delicate look to it. And like I said, some fresh berries, once they're in season, would be perfect for this. Maybe toss with a little bit of sugar and maybe just a hint of lemon or orange zest would go really nicely with this. You could also put cookies with that. The other thing I wanted to show you was just the quenelling of an item like this. So I'm going to take some of our shavings and put a pile of them on the plate. And we're going to talk about the one-handed quenelle. So we've got some chocolate shavings in the plate. We're going to go ahead and put this martini over to the side here. And I've got a little mason jar with some of the hot water that I had from our chocolate that we melted. It's not super, super hot, but it definitely needs to be nice and warm. We've got our cold mousse here that's fresh out of the fridge. And I'm going to take my spoon, and this is a pretty decent sized spoon here, but I'm going to get the water off of it, and then I'm going to take it and invert it upside down into our mousse, and I'm going to pull right up the side. One time with the hand on the bottom, and I can remove that quenelle of mousse right onto there. Venture into this chocolate mousse, enjoy it. Thank you so much for your time and effort here at the Culinary School. This has been Chef Blunt. Have a great day.